Many of you grew up listening to the song The Age of Aquarius, but if you're like me, you only have a vague understanding of what the Age of Aquarius actually is. In this video, you're going to learn what it is, what it means, and how it may affect our lives. I'm Kirsten Weiss. I write metaphysical and cozy mysteries about women transforming their lives. I'm here with Leslie Zemenek to talk about the Age of Aquarius. She is a wonderful astrologer and a witch. Is it okay if I say you're a witch?
I have no secrets.
And we were talking briefly last week about the Age of Aquarius, and I thought I need to stop and we need to record this because I think a lot of people would really enjoy hearing what Leslie has to say because she is so knowledgeable and so interesting. So welcome, Leslie.
Hello. Hello.
So
I just want to preface and say by no means am I the ultimate expert, and you'll find a lot of differing opinions out there about this, but I certainly am not afraid to be opinionated.
let's be controversial.
Okay.
What are these ages? Just to go way back to the beginning here.
So there are some astrologers who feel like Pluto kind of defines the ages, but of course that's, Pluto's a fairly newly discovered planet, and then of course it got downgraded to not being a planet at some point.
Isn't it a planet again?
I'm not sure astronomers consider it a planet again, but I don't know any astrologers who agreed to this and said we're just not going to use Pluto anymore. In fact, I think there was a lot of outrage in the astrological community when science decided to do that. We all went, no, it's too important.
I was outraged.
Yeah. And, I'm a Scorpio, and so Pluto, the ancient ruler for that is Mars, but Pluto is the modern ruler for that. So I'm particularly attached to Pluto. But I have read some astrologers do believe that Pluto defines the age. And we are at a defining moment for Pluto because it dipped its toe into Aquarius in May. And when it got to 2 degrees Aquarius, it's been in Capricorn since, I'll tell you in a minute, Capricorn since about 2008, 2008. I don't have the exact date in front of me. And Pluto, it's not like some of the other planets where its orbit is circular so that it's always the same number of years in a sign. It's oval. And I think that's one of the reasons they kind of downgraded it to like a proto-planet or something. But it is got an oval, irregular orbit around the Earth. So the amount of time it spends in a sign differs. So it's from 2008 to 2024. It's been in Capricorn, and it's been kind of an interesting period. Capricorn is it's not the happiest sign. And not to denigrate Capricorn in any way. We need every single sign, and every single sign has its positives and its negatives. But I think you and I discussed the fact that when the United States, and this is where we both are, and today's election day, by the way, so it's interesting to be talking about this. Pluto takes about 250 years to get around the sun. I think it's 248 to be more exact. And so it was in Capricorn when the United States was founded. So in 2020, we had the exact Pluto return for the country. And for a while there, Jupiter and Saturn were both in Capricorn at the same time. So that's been kind of the defining signs for this kind of period we've been going through of divisiveness and fear and negativity and conspiracy theories and all kinds of things that seem to be up for us right now. And so, as I mentioned, it dipped its toe into Aquarius in May, and then it went retrograde. And it's interesting that it's going to still be, it went direct again the very end of October, and will go into Aquarius and will not hit Capricorn again on November 19th, which also happens to be my birthday.
Happy birthday.
which, it'll feel like a birthday present to me. Um, so just to kind of talk a little about Capricorn. Capricorn rules is talks about rules. And it talks about structure. And we need structure. If you didn't have structure, everything would just be wiggly. And I mean, we just need structure. Think about, when I talk about Saturn and Capricorn, Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, I always talk to people about using a house as a metaphor when I'm talking about to them in their charts. I always say, is your house in order? Does your roof leak? That would be a Capricorn thing, to check that your roof doesn't leak or that your foundation is in good shape, so everything stands up and works the way it's supposed to. So we need Saturn, we need Capricorn, its sign. They're important things, but at the same time, on the negative, Capricorn can be very, rules can be restrictive. And when you study astrology, they always tell you that the following sign kind of is in backlash to the previous one. So you've got Capricorn, which is all about rules and following strict guidelines, followed by Aquarius, which is kind of the sign of surprise. We don't know what's happening. But it's inventiveness, it's freedom. So and of course Aquarius has its downside as well, which is chaos. So of course everything has a light and a shadow, and then there's always a sweet spot. But considering what's been going on, and of course there's a famous song, "This is the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius," which happened back, that's an old song. I don't remember.
Yeah, I grew up listening to it. Was it the 70s, I think? Or was it
I'd have to look that up. It might have been late 60s, early 70s. I'd have to look it up. Was it the Fifth Dimension? Was that the name of the band?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fifth Dimension.
Yeah. So I was kind of like going back through my memory today trying to remember that. But I don't think that truly was the dawning of the Age of Aquarius back then. As I mentioned earlier, Saturn and Jupiter were both in Capricorn as well, and they came together in Aquarius at the end of 2020. So in the beginning of 2020, we had all of those. We had Saturn and Pluto coming together in Capricorn. In fact, what's really interesting is in 2019, I told my financial advisor I wanted her to go more conservative on my investments, on my retirement plan, because the market was going to have a dip. And she thought I was out of my mind that the market was going to have a dip. And then in February of 2020, exactly when I told her it was going to have a dip, Saturn and Pluto came together in Capricorn, and there was a dip in the stock market. And she actually called me up. Which something she never did. She never called me up. She actually called me up. And I think I changed her mind about astrology after that. But I think actually astrology is great for looking at things like that.
Yeah.
At world events and how it's going to affect those kinds of things. But when you think about it, Pluto actually rules banking.
I didn't know that. I just thought that it's the god of the underworld, so I guess that all makes sense.
Well, it rules resources, other people's monies, they call it. They say sex, death, taxes, and other people's money. That's how it used to roll off my tongue. So what that means is shared resources, not your personal money, but the greater resources of the world. So it would be things like even our water supply and things like that. So it would rule banking in the stock market because those are shared resources.
Okay. So November 19th, then, what's happening?
So Pluto's going to move into Aquarius. I kind of felt that the joining of Jupiter and Saturn at the end of 2020 was helping to bring in the Age of Aquarius. But then when you add Pluto now, and that will be in Aquarius until 2044, so 20 years.
Okay.
So Pluto again, talking about um, shared resources. And we're talking about an age now where we're going to talk about, and Pluto, I mean, the main thing it really rules is power. So how is power wielded? So power is going to be wielded through inventions. It's going to, we're thinking about like all the AI that's happening now, right? The digital age, because Aquarius rules things like the internet, which of
Okay.
course, the ancients didn't know that because we didn't have the internet. But it's technology.
Mhm.
It rules technology. So technology, so free, there's gonna, to me, I think this is gonna be a time where we're gonna have incredible push forward in terms of inventions and technology doing things we never thought it could. Whether that's good or bad will depend on how is the power wielded.
All right. So it can go either
Yeah.
way. That's a little terrifying.
Yeah,
Um,
well, but it could be good. I mean, there could be some
yeah.
really
Yeah.
good things. I mean, maybe they'll come up with some ways to cure diseases or to work on climate change. I mean, these
Mhm.
are, possibilities. And like I said, everything has its shadow side. There's a book I read probably 20 years ago, and I have been racking my brain trying to remember the title and the author, and I can't. But it talked about how when people come up with inventions, it's always with the intention of it being a good thing, but how important it is before it's adopted widely that we need to look at the possibility for how it could go wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
And that book had a really big impact on my thinking, but of course I can't remember the name of it for the life of me.
Okay, so I have a question. So the age of Aquarius lasts how many, like 2000 years, 2200 years? How long?
Um, I Okay, that's a number not in my head. Um,
But
I'm a right
it's
brain thinker,
roughly
so
2000,
numbers.
isn't it?
I think it's roughly that, yeah.
Okay, so let's just go
And it
with
has a
roughly
lot,
2000.
and that has a lot more to do with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions because what's happening with that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that happened in end of 2020 in Aquarius is it starts Jupiter and Saturn come together um, more often than every 2,000 years, but what we're starting is a cycle of it going through the air signs.
Okay.
So what happens the last time it went through the air signs was, hold on, I can actually look that up for you if you give me a second. um it's called the Great Mutation, and the last time it went into an air cycle was 1226.
Oh, wow.
Um so we're gonna it's it's going to be in air signs for 200 years, I believe. Jupiter and Saturn meet up every 20 years. And so in 2059, it moves into water. But so, again, the age of Aquarius, how long it's going to last, I think there's differing opinions about it.
Okay,
And
so what,
and then you always have to take these things going on because, things in astrology and these energies don't exist in a vacuum. It's not the one thing.
that's what I was going to ask you about, because going back to that song, which is like the beginning of my understanding of the age of Aquarius, is all, oh, love and harmony and understanding and peace and joy abounds and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Um, but it sounds like you've got the age of Aquarius, and then it's Aquarius is kind of flavored by all these other,
Oh yeah, and because
planets and
nothing
signs.
is, I mean, we're so used to thinking about astrology as a single thing because we think about it as our sun sign, right? Most people just know astrology as a sun sign and they write it off because, they read the horoscope in the newspaper and it doesn't feel like it applies to them. But it's a very complex system. And when you talk about a person, people, they have a moon sign, and some people and sign, it depends on what house it's in,
Mhm.
and what other planets it's talking to at the time it was born. What's your rising sign? People are sometimes mistaken for their rising sign long before their people recognize their sun sign. And there's a thing that we say in astrology is that you're not born your sun sign, the best version of your sun sign. You have to work your way into it.
Oh, I like that.
So,
That's pretty cool.
so you experience all parts of it. And as I said, nothing is all good or all bad.
Yeah.
Everything contains it's opposite.
Yeah.
Um,
So you,
and
oh,
and
sorry.
so, for instance, my son is in my fifth house, which is ruled by Leo. I can't tell you how many people I would say guess my sun sign, and they would guess Leo. And I don't have any Leo in my chart.
Well, you have a very Leo charge to you.
But that's because it's where I have 4 planets in that house. So, people would say Leo. So it's not as easy as the sun sign, the horoscope makes it sound. And the same is true when we talk about in world events. And then there's mundane astrology, which is the astrology of countries or court, and you can actually do the astrology of a corporation.
Mhm.
So there's so many versions of this and so many ways to look at it, and it's really complex, and nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything is got, it's constant motion, so there's something always changing. Even the moon sign changes every 2.5 days.
So you mentioned the air signs coming in. I think it was Saturn and
Saturn and Jupiter is going to conjoin into air signs for 20 years.
when does that happen?
Oh, every 20 years.
Every
So
20 years. So it's happening.
yeah. So
So it's happening soon. Or
it started in the end of 2020 when
Okay.
they met in Aquarius.
So what does that mean for Aquarius?
Well, a lot of people felt that was the dawning of the age, because you have Saturn and Jupiter. They are older planets than, say, Pluto. They've been, they were planets that the ancients knew about.
Mm.
And this coming together has been looked at since ancient times and so Jupiter is expansion and Saturn is contraction. So they're kind of opposites, but when they come together, it's like the beginning of a cycle again. We have another cycle starting,
Okay.
a 20-year cycle. So, but there's constant cycles happening. But this Jupiter Saturn, they were considered the most planets before we discovered Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto.
Mm.
So to the ancients, they were very important markers in terms of the way they viewed what was coming for them in their future.
Mm.
And
So
again, I'm not like the biggest scholar on this stuff, but I know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, you know a lot more than I do. That's for sure. Well, all right. So any predictions for 2025 based on the age of Aquarius and what's going on?
Well, I do think that AI is going to be taking a bigger, going to be showing up more in our world. What I'm not sure how I feel about that. Personally, I'm also an artist and a writer, and so I've already seen it having an effect on other artist and writer friends in a not so great way.
Yeah.
It's like we're in November, and I don't know. Are you familiar with NaNoWriMo? National
Yeah,
Novel
I didn't
Writing
do it
Month?
this year.
I didn't
Yeah.
do it this year either, and the reason is because they decided it was going to be okay for people to submit stuff with AI.
Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, I get that people are going to do it and I'm not going to be able to stop them, but I think art and writing, what makes art is there's a piece of somebody's soul that went into that and the humanity
Absolutely.
of it.
Yeah.
And having a computer, just like, I want this story about, blah, blah, blah. And then the computer writes it and then you edit it. To me, it's just not, it's not there.
No.
And I don't like it. But I do think there is an opportunity. I think people are going more analog. Younger people now want actual paperback books these days. They don't want ebooks. They're actually
Right.
decorating the book spines on their own. They want things that are tangible. And I think as things get more and more fake, there's going to
Right.
be a desire for things that are more and more real.
Right.
So I think there is an opportunity for writers too, if you could just like stick to your personality and your soul and do things the way you want to do them and maybe not quite the way everyone else is. Because I also think AI is going to move everything towards the mean. Because what AI is doing is it's looking at all the stuff that's been published and then kind of mushing them together. Oh, how do you write a bestseller? Let's look at the last 100 bestsellers. Okay, we'll mash it all together and get that. And so it's just corporatizing everything towards the mean. And I think it's going to get very boring. I think that's what's happened, in my opinion, as a Gen Xer. I think modern music is very boring. It just all sounds the same to me. And I cringe a little saying that because my parents were always, what is that trash? It all sounds the same. So I know exactly how I sound. But I do think that like the music from the 80s and the 70s, and to some extent from the 90s, just had more soul to it and more originality.
Yep.
And
But
sorry, I'm
that,
blathering.
but well, I also just read something recently, and I didn't read it in depth. I just cursorily gave it a cursory glance, but how they expect AI to get involved in things like military decisions. And I'm like, I'm not sure how that's going to work. And
Yeah.
what happens if there's a huge disaster and they made a decision based on artificial intelligence? I mean, what does that mean for the world? And so my head was exploding and I decided not to read the whole article.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I think of AI drones. I think of those little robot dogs with guns mounted on the backs,
Right.
and it's something very bad could be. I hope it's
Yeah,
not, but
I
it's
hope not
scary.
either. But,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there could be some positive things that come out of this. I
Yeah, I
just
mean, there
don't
could
know
be
what they
much more
are.
freedom. We could, clean up elections. we,
You
we
know,
could like
I
know
just
exactly. We could go online and know exactly how our representative has been voting, and if they've been doing what they've said they've done, and where
yeah,
they getting the money, and have that just so much have. There can be a lot more transparency in government,
mhm,
so which would make things a lot more democratic. I think if people know what's going on, they can be more educated about it, especially if it's easy to get that information.
right,
So things can things can go really well, or
right. So,
hopefully they go well. Let's all
and
work
maybe,
towards it going well.
technology isn't just AI. There may be other new technologies that come in or inventions.
Yeah,
Inventions don't have to be digital. It's about ideas, and it's about the freedom to share ideas. So we may
yeah,
have more discourse.
yes,
I
yeah.
mean,
It definitely see that happening.
yeah,
It's already happening.
I would like to see that continue, is the ability to have more discourse.
Yeah,
So, and there's a lot of Aquarius also talks about community, and it has a humanitarian element to
mhm,
what it rules. So it may be that we see more humanitarian efforts, more sharing, more what's the word? Equality. Those are things that are possible with Aquarius.
mhm.
And as I said, everything has a good side and a bad side. I mean, the opposite is going to be chaos. It rules things like explosions, and I'm hoping we don't have too many of those.
Yes, let's
But
avoid.
yeah, well, but obviously we can also talk about an explosion of something that's good.
Of
Uh,
thought.
yes. So, we use that as a metaphor. It
Mm,
doesn't have to just be what we think of as something blowing up.
yeah, going bang.
Right.
Well,
So,
this has been so enlightening, Leslie. I've really enjoyed it. How can people get in touch with you?
so I have my website is my name, and you can see it down at the bottom here on my window. It has how to spell it, because it's not easy like somebody named Smith or Jones, or something that's obvious how to spell. But it's just my name, lesliezemenek.com. Um, and I have an Instagram. I think my Instagram is Life Purpose Guide. Um, I've changed it a couple times. But if you looked up my name, you'd find that there as well. And I've been on the internet since before 2000, 1999, when the internet was a baby. So it's pretty easy to find me there.
Fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to let viewers know? Anything I missed
Um,
or you'd like to add?
no. Well,
Yeah,
my
I think you're pretty thorough.
yeah, the thing I love most about astrology is how much it can reveal to people about themselves. So as much as I love looking at things like mundane astrology and how it's affecting the world, and like how I was kind of like, excited that I got my financial advisor to even consider it. Um, to me, what I really love to do with it is to help people understand themselves and to be able to look at the opportunities that are available to them for growth. Because
That
even when
actually,
things, yeah, even when things look like they're a challenge, there's always a seed of opportunity in there.
yeah, I love that concept of your sun sign being who you can be, not who you're born as.
Hmm.
Because I've been thinking so much the last couple of years about transformation, and I realized most of my books, whether they're cozy mystery novels or metaphysical, are about people going through transformations internally and how the
Hmm.
world kind of in their life changes around them as they do that. So I had never thought of astrology as a tool for transformation. And it's really exciting to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. It truly is because we all come in, I think, to become better versions of ourselves. And since there is this range of everything from the shadow to the light, it's about finding your real sweet spot in there,
Mhm.
um, which is a little different for everybody. So it really has a host of information available.
Well, Leslie, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. Everybody, check out Zemenek's. Sorry, check out Leslie Zemenek's website.